What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Case Digital. In this video, we are going to be answering the question of how to create a virtual environment in Python. So, without further ado, let's hop right in and start talking about this. Okay, before we actually dive into the exact commands that you need to execute to install and create your virtual environment, I first want to kind of explain for those that are new to this what a virtual environment is in Python. Essentially, what I like to think of a virtual environment as is your little sandbox. Your sandbox for all the Python packages that you need to create a project or a set of connected projects. And what I mean by this is a lot of times, like in Python, you use pip to install, certain packages like say NumPy or matplotlib. Those are very common ones if you haven't heard of them yet. But essentially, a lot of times as you move in projects, you kind of get to a set version of these set of packages that you want to use. And if you keep them all in your kind of in kind of your global Python environment that comes installed, like when you install Python, over time you could get dependency issues that say, hey, this little program or app that I wrote over here uses say NumPy 1.2, whereas hey, my newer stuff is using the latest NumPy of say 2.0. And what this virtual environment allows you to do is kind of build that sandbox so that you can go and say, hey, this is my sandbox for this project, and hey, this is my sandbox for for this other project. Now, it does lend itself to you are installing more stuff on your machine, and you're kind of eating up a little bit more memory just because you're getting these multiples of these packages. But a lot of times it's because hey, like it's multiples, but it's hey, this is this version, say 1.0, and this is this other version of 1.2 or 2.0. So there's the pros and cons. You're kind of losing memory, but ultimately in the Pythonic world or in the Python world, creating a virtual environment for a project is the key thing to do. So without further ado, that is what a virtual environment is. Now let's go and create one. Hey, I just want to jump in real quick, say thank you so much for watching the video so far. If it's providing you value, please click that like button below. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel so we can learn more about software development and programming. And well, speaking of programming, let's get right back to it. Okay, so to create our virtual environment in Python, we first have to make sure that our base installed version of Python has a package installed. And that package is called virtualenv. And so if you haven't used pip or anything like that to install packages into a specific Python environment before, what you're going to do is in your terminal, and I would say in your terminal in the directory that you want. Well, basically just in your terminal, because you're eventually going to want to be in your directory of your project that you're working on. But for this command, it doesn't really matter because we're just installing this package to the base level of Python. But anyways, you're going to type in pip install virtualenv. Now, when you hit enter, like mine already has it installed, so you'll already see like, hey, everything's all satisfied. But yours will probably install all these other dependencies that the env relies upon. But just to make sure, or if you don't want to run this yet, you can always check by doing pip freeze list, and this will tell you if you don't have a virtual environment activated. This command will tell you like, hey, here's for your base version of Python. Here's all the packages that are installed into it, and that is essentially the only package that we need right now to then go and create a virtual environment. So let's start talking about how you can actually use this virtual env package to create your Python virtual environment for your project. Okay, so now that we have virtual env installed, all we need to do is do one line or one command in your terminal, and this is the command that needs to be in your I would say it needs to be in your project folder, because that's kind of what most people do. But if you have a specific spot where you want to place all your virtual environments for specific things, then just make sure that you can know the path to that through your terminal. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to type Python -m, and now we're going to say venv, and now right here we're going to hit space, and then this is the name that you're going to give your environment. Now a lot of times if your environment is inside of your project, like you see I have this project folder called YouTube tutorials, I'm already in this folder. So a lot of times when you're in that, people just give it the word of env just to show that that's their environment. But if for whatever reason you want to give it a specific name because, hey, maybe it's like, you're doing something for documents. Maybe this is my doc_env, or this is for my awesome cool new project. Maybe you want to put that and put that in another, folder or directory. But a lot of times people will put that in their folder, in their directory where their project is at the root level, and then they'll just type Python -m VENV and then space and then do ENV. And when you hit enter, what you're going to do is you're going to see up here, it's creating this folder. And as it's going through, it's going to go into this lib folder and start creating and adding all the stuff that's needed for the base environment of Python that you can use. And so once that's returned, there it is. This is giving us everything that we need to do to start adding packages into this specific environment and start using it. So let's actually jump right in and show you the command that you can use to activate this environment. Because this is the command to create it. Now I'll show you the command that you need to activate this so that you can actually start, when you install a new package, it's installing it to this package rather than your base version of Python. Okay, so we just installed our virtual environment for our projects. So there it is, env, and all of its stuff that it needs in there. Now what I'm going to show you is how to activate it. And one thing I want you to pay attention, and sometimes it's depending on what you're using, but in your terminal, either just above this, the line of where your terminal is active, or either above it or just before it, I want you to notice what happens when we do this command. Because to activate your environment, what you're going to need to do is in your terminal, you want to do source, which basically means hey, I want you to run this piece of code. Source, and then I'm going to do env / now if you're on Windows, this will look like env, and then it'll be scripts, / and then activate, or with the lowercase. But I think it's on Windows, or on Linux and Mac, you're going to want to essentially find this activate script. And on those, it's in the bin file. So what we're going to do is rather than do env scripts, I'm going to do bin, and then I'm going to do activate. And that's it. Just look at this line and hit enter. Now look, you can see is in parentheses before our terminal, it's showing env. Well, that's the name of our environment. And what this is showing you is that when I run things like Python, if I run things like Python, or if I run things like pip, when I run these commands, I can do pip install numpy. This is a popular Python package. So if I look in this folder, what you're going to see is it's going to install numpy to this environment rather than our base environment, which contained these packages. So that's essentially how you can. That's when you have this env or whatever the name of your pack, whatever you named your package. When you hit source and then activate it, it's going to put this signifier, I guess, or this identifier in your terminal that lets you know that hey, in your terminal under Python, when you run Python stuff, we're going to be running from essentially all the packages or the environment that you created, or that's been that's showing here. So that's essentially how you activate it. You just essentially, again, source env. Now on Windows, it'll be /script /activate. On, I believe, Linux and Mac, I'm on, it'll be /bin /activate. Now, if you're done, you don't want to use this environment, or you don't want to use this for your project anymore, all you have to do is just type deactivate, and you'll see that it goes away. Now, if I do the pip freeze thing again, freeze list, you'll see that, hey, look, there is no numpy, or numpy, that's how it's called. There's no numpy in there, whereas in our environment, there was a numpy because we installed it. So again, that's how you create a virtual environment. That's how you activate it. And then when you're done with it, that's how you deactivate it. And you can use either another virtual environment, or you can use your base Python environment. But if you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments below. I'll do my best to answer them. Hopefully this has provided you value. If it has, please hit that like button. Subscribe if you aren't subscribed. Let's keep on learning about software development, programming, Python, and everything around the development world. And until next time, keep on coding.